your brilliance and want to applaud you. So.
And yours too, and Carl, big deal as well. I mean, my God, tonight, we've competed with all sorts of films in the hundreds of theaters. The Steal the Story, Please has been in Carl and Tia Lesson's film. But we've never had to compete with a global natural phenomenon. And so I was saying our only hope, like I said, I know people bought tickets, but they didn't know what was going to happen tonight. And if if they find out that they've got the eclipse and us, I was very touched when the man came in with the sunglasses, those special glasses, and he said he chose Steal the Story, Please. But we've competed with the Odyssey, with The Devil Wears Prada 2, and I said, well, maybe you could tell them, put out an email or something and say, while the world goes dark, if you'd like some illumination, please come to this film.
It is prophetic. Also, I did actually see it, and spoiler alert, it just went a bit dark. So this is I can.
It was very underwhelming. You guys didn't miss anything. I promise you.
Much darker in here.
6 o'clock, so we could have seen whatever was.
Oh, okay. There you go. Double feature.
Yeah.
So, Amy, I'm going to start with this one because I love the title of this film, and it's for me it really speaks to what a rare beast that Amy is. That most journalists are highly competitive. They guard their homework. They don't want to share stories. They don't even want to credit or acknowledge other journalists' stories. Whereas the whole message of this is like, literally, you're like, please take our stories. You talk about that.
Well, it's our motto, steal the story, please. And Carl can talk about why he and Tia chose it for the film. But, I've always considered an exclusive a failure. If we're the only ones who broadcast it, the point is for it to be picked up all over the world and be projected to the rest of the world. I mean, you saw the standoff at Standing Rock. I thought we were going to be elbowing our way to the front of this historic, epic gathering of thousands of indigenous people who were taking on basically pipeline politics for the future of the planet, taking on climate change. And there we were among the only global journalists. And just filming, we show a dog with its mouth and nose dripping with blood. We posted online, and within 24 hours, 14 million views, as you saw. And whenever we went into the corporate network studios, when I'm interviewed on CNN or MSNBC, now it's MS Now, I'd say, why don't you do this? And maybe this part was in the film, I can't remember. Why don't you cover climate change? I mean, yes, they cover the heat waves, but talk about how it relates to what we're doing to this planet. And they'd say the corporate execs upstairs, they say people aren't interested. And 14 million views in 24 hours shows you people deeply care. You are not a fringe minority, whether it's about war and peace, whether it's about the climate, whether it's about immigrant crackdown, whether it's about LGBTQ issues, whether it's about racial and economic justice. You're not a fringe minority. You're not a silent majority. You're the silenced majority, silenced by the corporate media, which is why we have to take the media back.
Carl, so you are a journalist, were a journalist, and so tell me, I'm really curious how this film came about. What was the origin of it? Was it something you've been thinking about for a long time? How much what was it take to persuade Amy? Lots of questions.
Yeah, I know that's a lot. Well, I'll say that Tia and I, we've been making films for a little while, and I have worked as a journalist in the commercial media as well. This is payback right now. Okay, there we go. But that's fine. Bring it on. And we were shocked that Amy said yes, because initially we were thinking about Democracy Now, but we said we're really not interested in a film about Democracy Now, but if Amy would step out front, she's a lot more interesting than an institution. I mean, who knew?
Did you know, so, because, I mean, I didn't know the incredible backstories, the archive, East Timor. I knew nothing of that. My knowledge of Amy the legend came from more recent times.
Yeah, no, we knew
You
the
didn't
outline.
know when we interviewed you, Carol, for your incredible work. But no, because that's not what we talk about when we're talking.
No, and we knew the outlines of Amy's story, but Amy makes a career and a life out of centering other people's voices, and not herself and not her own. And you'll see her, she's going to keep diverting every question back to me or back to somebody else or back to you. It's the toughest assignment that I've ever had, is she was a very willing subject, but can I say?
Depends what you're going to say.
Kind of uncooperative, because she didn't want to talk about herself. And so we had some real challenges with that, but that she invited us in, and there were no rules. She and her team handed over everything that they had access to from their 30-year archive of making this show Democracy Now! And even going back in the earlier years in the radio days, in the pre-TV radio days, and the pre-Democracy Now! Radio days, we had everything. And so when you're trying to make a film and tell a story that has emotion and texture and context, it's such a gift, because we could approach it almost like, we cut a whole bunch of verite scenes. Like, you could see what's happening behind the scenes. We were so fortunate that there was a camera on Amy and her team as shock and awe started in Iraq. And so you really got a feeling for what motivates them to do the work that they do and why it's important.
But of course, you're not giving yourself enough credit, because what I want to say is, he's saying, who knew there was all of this footage? Well, we also didn't know in a number of cases. And Carl and Tia's research abilities, they won the hindsight
This is
award.
she's doing it. That's just an illustration.
At the Savannah Film Festival, because the research that went into finding, and there was a whole portion, as you know, we were just doing radio. How on earth is their film? I didn't even remember, but they found it. And just a few words about Carl Deal and Tia Lesson, Oscar-nominated filmmakers who did Trouble the Water about Hurricane Katrina. Tia just recently won 3 Emmys for The Janes, about the underground abortion network in Chicago in the 1960s. They did Citizen Kane. They were Michael Moore's producers. So they're an amazing, dynamic directing duo, which made it a little bit easier to allow these stalkers into my life. But also deeply understand, as we'd interviewed them a number of times on Democracy Now! For these films, the importance of independent media. And there is nothing more important right now when we have a president in the United States who calls the media the enemy of the people.
Do you just want to talk us a little bit? I mean, obviously you've covered that in the film, but the fascinating thing to me is that we've seen this sort of really rapid collapse in the media in the US. But it's the corporate media giants, the ones who look so strong and have got all this resource and billionaires behind them, they're the ones who toppled. Whereas it's the underdogs, the plucky underdogs, who like yourselves, who absolutely stood firm.
As you know, I like being compared to a dog, because I'm missing my dog Sasu very much right now.
Well, I mean, that's why independent journalism is so important. Is Amy and her team at Democracy Now! And you are accountable to your listeners and viewers, and nobody else. And that's a really appealing notion in the States right now, and maybe increasingly here as well, because right now you can see exactly how transactional power is with our president and with the media, and that he wields his power to shape the message and to bully people, in the news business. And so a lot of journalists who've been working, in the legacy media for long careers are leaving and going independent now, because it's the only way that you can have your say.
And do you feel that the perception of you and what Democracy Now! Is doing have you noticed a shift as well? And also from the sort of legacy of mainstream media.
And you know that, Carol, too, because you left The Guardian and you started The Nerve,
I mean,
which is fantastic.
I can tell it actually, because probably some of you won't know this, but I'm part of the Nerve. We've got some other Nerve co-founders here. We came out of the Guardian and Observer and set up our own outlet just nearly a year ago. But I was very inspired because last summer, when we were really thinking about how to do this, Amy interviewed me in the studio in Democracy Now! In New York, and then gave me this incredible tour afterwards. And later in the day, I went to visit the New York Times, to visit a friend there into the tower. And I came back with so much like the New York Times corporate media, that is so, it just left a bad taste. I was like, this is absolutely the model. But you really pioneered it, I think, this like getting the support direct from the public, didn't you?
Yes, and I also want to say about people in the corporate media, 30 years ago, people were saying, you saw this clip of me on C-SPAN, talking about media consolidation decades ago, and people would say, can you just lay off a little bit? Because it's not about individuals, it's about the whole system. And now it's, could you say that a little louder, please? But I also want to acknowledge Dan Sabat at The Guardian, the defense editor, and thank you so much for the piece you did in The Guardian about Steal the Story, Please, and Democracy Now! It means a lot to us, and your bravery in covering Ukraine and other places is so important to the world. Thank you for the journalism that you do. But on corporate consolidation, actually, Carl should say a few words because I didn't realize that the UK just okayed the corporate merger between Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount Skydance, but they did express reservations weeks ago, saying this could be a major threat to democracy, this level of monopolization. And Carl and Tia and the executive producers who we're going to see this weekend, Rosario Dawson and Jane Fonda, signed a letter challenging this level of media platforms merging. I mean, it is critical we have a plethora of independent media to hear all different voices. Last year it started right around the time, or you saw Stephen Colbert, I'd been on his show a few times, and suddenly they're announcing he's going to be out in a few months. A week later, Trump's Federal Communications Commission announces they're approving the merger between Skydance and Paramount, Paramount, which owns CBS, which runs 60 Minutes, and Trump sued 60 Minutes to the tune of CBS paid Trump $16 million. Well, they should have gone to court. He was challenging for their editing of a Kamala Harris interview. But that approval happened after Trump had repeatedly called for Stephen Colbert to be out, the late night comic. And so they announced it, and that got approved. And then this year, right as they're going for the final merging of Paramount, which owns CBS, Warner Brothers Discovery, which owns CNN, HBO, Paramount, Universal Studios, unbelievable merging of all of these. He finally was forced out. And now, but because of tremendous protest, thousands signed your letter. Is that right, Carl?
Yeah, it's 5,000 or 6,000 now and growing, and these are mostly entertainment industry workers, but lately a lot of journalists are signing on. There's a real robust effort in place in the States to block this latest mega merger. If only they'd been listening 30 years ago, right? But I would say that kind of bullying and that Trump did with the media in the United States. I don't know if you remember a year ago when the BBC aired an edit of Trump's words. It's everything he said, and he threatened, I don't want to misquote it, but was it $1 billion lawsuit? I think it was a ridiculous amount of money, and heads rolled at the BBC. And so the only reason I say that isn't because we're here, but it had a chilling effect across our industry. We were at the International Documentary Festival in Amsterdam about 2 weeks later, and the commissioning editors there were all going through the films that they had commissioned up to that point, and were purging their slates of anything that might provoke Donald Trump again, even if it's true. And so that's a chilling impact, and he understands that power really, really well.
And one thing I'll say about the news of this week, of today that came out, thanks to the Washington Post, you heard that Trump, when he came back from NATO, went onto another plane because he was concerned that Iran would retaliate for U.S. and Israel killing the supreme leader and his family by targeting him. It's, it is, what we learned was he went off of Air Force One, unbeknownst to the press, inside the plane, and in a catering truck, they took him like a hot dog to another plane. And
Are you sure it wasn't McDonald's?
He flew off in that plane, and the press, unbeknownst to not knowing what the intelligence agencies were saying, flew off. Now, interestingly, as decoys, not knowing they were. Now, Marco Rubio and Stephen Miller on the plane, but they knew. Now, interestingly, Trump just finished subpoenaing New York Times reporters for exposing that the Qatar gift of Air Force One to Trump that he gets to keep afterwards wasn't militarily equipped enough. And so you remember he didn't take that one back. And so the Trump administration subpoenaed the New York Times reporters for exposing the problems with the Qatari plane. I'm beginning to wonder now that we've learned this, if the reason they were subpoenaing them is they were really concerned about this expose, and how much did they know about the fact that he went off the second plane and onto a third plane, leaving the unsuspecting reporters that he so likes to lambast, particularly women and women of color, right? Calling them ignorant, fat, ugly, stupid, etc.
The one, actually, you know what? We do have some roving mics. Do we have them? Should we have hands up? And whilst we're going, I'll squeeze in a question. There is maybe this woman down in the front row here. Can I ask you a very quick one? Access journalism. There's a real, I know you have strong views, as do I. So please, can you?
Right.
What's wrong with access journalism?
I always talk about it as the access of evil, trading truth for access. And that is not worth it. Politicians need journalists more than journalists need politicians.
And it's who got your mic?
Yeah, hello. Carl, great film. Amy, you're a legend. I watch DocHouse now literally every day. It's just so great.
How did you come across it?
My aunt, actually. But now I've introduced it to everyone I know. And they tell me the news is bleak, but good to be informed. My question has been a little bit covered, but I just wanted to ask a little bit more about it. What role do you guys think social media has in challenging established legacy media narratives, particularly in the US? I'm thinking, on the one hand about the rise of fake news, but then on the other hand about the rise of left-wing political commentators and streamers on platforms like Twitch and YouTube. People like Hassan Piker, for example, who reach a huge amount of young people.
Well, I'll answer that just by saying what I observed when Democracy Now! We were still filming when Democracy Now! Was covering the demolition of Gaza, and Democracy Now! In the States was one of the only places where you could go, especially in those first months, to hear voices of people on the ground. And what I saw happening was one of their critical reporting tools. Well, first of all, they had great contacts there, and they had a history, and they knew, and they had people to call on. But they also used social media really effectively to identify people who had stories to tell, and then you could reach out to them directly. And I don't know how many guests you had on but anybody could have brought those voices on the air because they were out there in the public. And so that's a really good use as a reporting tool for what we do of social media.
And we've always felt from the beginning, Democracy Now! Just celebrated 30 years. And we had this big event at Riverside Church where Dr. King gave a speech against the Vietnam War a year to the day before he was assassinated. He did it in 1967. 2,000 people packed in, and Patti Smith sang, and Michael Stipe of REM, Angela Davis talked about the importance of dissent, and Bruce Springsteen sang The Streets of Minneapolis, the song that he wrote for the people coming together in Minneapolis under this terrible ICE crackdown that has killed people, that has maimed people, of course, detained and deported people. And again, I think that represents the majority, the people who stood up in Minneapolis across the political spectrum, the voices we need to hear, because this is humanity. It cannot be easily categorized. And I think that's why Democracy Now! Has grown so much in these 30 years. But in the beginning, we couldn't afford the network satellites that they used to put out even just a radio show. We were there before the word podcast. We put our MP3 online at democracynow.org, where we still are, and then the radio stations could take it. And because we did that, each of the segments, people would just voluntarily transcribe them and send us the transcription. They would be taken to the State Department, White House, Pentagon press briefings, because we didn't have your typical pundits who knew so little about so much, explaining the world to us and getting it so wrong. And so it just grew, right? We would rise in the Google search equations because all the words were there. Even to this day, many network shows do not put their transcripts online. But that meant we had a global audience. And still we didn't think, oh, people have to find democracynow.org. All the social media, we went on one social media platform on another because we go to where people are. We don't expect you are going to come to us. And now millions of people, especially young people, are watching on YouTube or on Instagram, etc. And we will keep on reaching out. We can't predict the social media platforms of the future, but what we can say is we're going to be there.
Oh, have we got should we go to mic? So should we do two? There's two mics. Should we send them both down the road? That's brilliant. Can I ask hands in the air? Who's seen Democracy Now! On YouTube or on social media? This is can I ask who seeks it out and who just sort of like finds it coming to you? I actually wasn't seek it out. I forgot to ask.
Can I mention Amy's on Free Speech TV, which is a universal conglomerate of different similar.
It's a satellite TV network in the United States.
Right. And you can get it here. I watch it down here too. I saw you this morning.
Amazing. So who's got the mic? Here we go.
So I'm going to make an assumption about left-wing politics and social justice, so forgive me for that assumption. As you know, in America, there has been a real demonization of, quote, fringe communities, quote, and I put that in quotes because we're really talking about, 0.002% of the population, but it has been a very handy demonization for the current administration, speaking specifically, for example, about trans rights. Now, we have a number of elections coming up, and then in 2 years, another big election coming up. And many people on the left are saying, can we please just be quiet about those people on the margins? We need to focus in the middle. We need to get ourselves in power. And then once we do that, then we can start helping a wider tent of people who we hope will support us in the meantime. I noticed that in many of the clips that you showed today, you often seem to present one side and equally passionately present the other. And I wondered what you thought about the efficacy for people who are hoping for a more left-leaning administration what you think of the efficacy of that kind of thinking. Let's just get into power and then we can worry about them.
I don't think it's so much people who are the people you're saying are on the fringe are making a lot of noise. I think it's the people who are targeting them. So it's not a matter of you just be quiet until. I mean, think about that. Women, in the United States didn't get the right to vote until like 1919, 1920. Just be quiet and we'll get you the right to vote and then speak up. Well, they have to represent. We have to represent ourselves. I mean, I was thinking of the Illinois governor, Pritzker, who said, there are like 130,000 athletes in Illinois on teams, college and high school teams. What are 3 trans? They're not yelling. Those people aren't yelling. It's everyone else. And I think things just change. I think it's our job in the media to document the movements. You never know when the magic moment comes. I think about gay marriage or marriage equality. Right? For years, the right in the United States, if they wanted to get a candidate elected, they would put a gay marriage referendum on their state ballot because then they couldn't get people out to vote for the conservative candidate. So if they put gay marriage on it, people would come out to vote it down, and then they would probably vote for the conservative candidate. It was a ploy. But then young people, conservative, progressive, liberal, whoever, came of age, and they were saying, what do we care? It just turned almost overnight, but not just magically. It came from the movements that had been fighting for this, but there was a sudden change. You never know when that magic moment comes, but if you're involved with social change and you build a foundation, you will help to make history. You will help to determine the future. And our job is to cover the movements that are making history.
Yay.
How much time have we got? How much time do we have left?
One last question.
One last question. Oh, okay. We had a very
All 5 of you.
insistent.
Three really short ones and 3 really fast answers.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I have a really short question. I hope it's a short answer. You've spent like 30 years plus covering a lot of really horrible, I think, and atrocious things that are happening and hopeful parts. And I guess what makes you hopeful today, assuming you are still hopeful?
That's a good question. Let's get 2 more.
Do you want to shout
We've done this
out?
before, Max.
Oh, here we go. There's another mic. Should we send it down?
You can yell it.
Or yell?
Hi, thank you for the film. A very quick question. There's a hierarchy in Western mass media towards coverage on Africa, which forms problematic global narratives. Is independent media doing any better? And if not, what should they do?
Right. And do you just want to hand it behind you to the man behind you who's been very keen as well?
Well done, Amy. Amy, I'm just curious to know about the dynamic of constitution against democracy, because obviously, what are your hopes if Trump is out of the White House? Are there any candidates that you are hoping will sort of be able to change, switch, reverse things? That's a
Well,
question.
you can make news tonight. Your first political endorsement.
We cover the elections and we cover the movements. It's not about individuals, it's about these whole movements that are changing, at least I can say in the United States, are making history. Whether we're talking about what's happened in New York City. I mean, with Mayor Mamdani right now, it is astounding that the polls of, for example, the Jewish community around the United States, he is number 1. Netanyahu is so far down, not to mention Trump. We just reported today, Peggy Flanagan, who is a Native American leader in Minnesota, has just won the Democratic Senate her Democratic Senate primary. If she wins in November, she'll be the first Native American senator and first Native American woman who is senator in the U.S. Senate, and she is a progressive candidate who is pushing the same platform. But it's not just the United States we cover, of course. We cover people and movements and countries all over the world. Going to your question about Africa and how important it is, as you saw our coverage of Nigeria going back a ways, but we are talking about what is happening in Africa and Asia, just, repeatedly in the last weeks, talking about the cockroach junta party in India and what has happened with young people turning everything on its head. What was it? Sort of like a Supreme Court justice named these unemployed youth, called them cockroaches. And so they said, okay, we are the cockroaches. And now they're calling him the co-founder of the movement. He's like, no. I mean, the humor in this is so amazing. And I think both of your questions are about hope. I have tremendous hope because I believe in humanity. You never achieve democracy. You have to fight for it every single day. And we have to have a media in this country and this world, and that's why I was willing to have these stalkers follow me. But this model of listener, viewer, reader supported, I don't even see it as an audience. I see it as the global citizenry. I see the media as a huge kitchen table that stretches across the globe, that we all sit around, like my dining room table at home growing up, like our kitchen table. We all sit around and debate and discuss the most important issues of the day: war and peace, life and death. And anything less than that is a disservice to the servicemen and women of our countries. They can't have these public debates on bases about whether they're sent to kill or be killed. Anything less than that is a disservice to a democratic society.
And I wish that could have been the last word, but we can't end this screening or this event without acknowledging, well, first of all, you guys, thank you for coming here. So much of what Amy and Democracy Now! Do is about building community, and actually the way she described them, building democracy now, it was done in community with other people, and they cover movements. And independent cinema is about community, and so all of you are part of this, and we're grateful that you're here. And we need to shout out and thank DocHouse, Bertha DocHouse, for existing. And we hope that everybody here takes advantage of this tremendous resource that plays documentaries every single day just downstairs. Sheffield for having launched us in the UK and being part of this screening. Anna, thank you. And also Tony Tabatsnik, who is the brain behind Bertha DocHouse and such a generous supporter of storytellers like us, and is also one of our executive producers. And so we want to shout out Tony and thank him so much for everything that he's done for this film, but more so for the community of documentary filmmakers and stories about social justice. So thank you, everybody.
And the film is going to be playing, well, today at 9 o'clock, but then from Friday.
It's Friday. It's for a week. It's got a week-long run here. Please tell your friends or your colleagues. Come again. If you didn't like the film, come again. Give it another chance. And they might extend it here. There's talk of doing that already. And then again, we'll be in some larger screens towards the end of September. So keep an eye out. We're at stealthestory.org. So check us out. Follow us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.